Hi there, I'm Fraser, the Product Technical Lead here at Salamander Soft. We're really excited to bring you our self-service rollover tool for 2026 in the Salamander Cloud Portal. This tool will help our customers using Sims, Bromcom or Arbor get their integration suite installation ready for next academic year. The tool will allow you to enable early creation of users, groups, Microsoft Teams and Google Classrooms, as well as enabling the early synchronization of timetable events to user calendars. During the process, you'll be asked to check and confirm various changes to MIS data, so it may be helpful to have your school's data manager available to review these changes. The tool can only be run once, and it's important that the changes to your data are checked carefully. If your install is eligible, you'll see this banner appear in the Salamander Cloud Portal. When you're ready to start creating your resources for next year, click the banner to start the process. Access to the Rollover tool is controlled by the Rollover Manager permission, which can be assigned in the User Access page under Customer Management. If you're a multi-academy trust or school group running a multi-school installation, users can be given access only to specific schools if required. Install managers will be granted the Rollover Manager permission by default. If you're having trouble accessing the tool or assigning access to other users, please contact the support team for help. In this first step, we'll update your integration suite and get things ready to configure your rollover. This may take some time depending on your configuration. The page will update automatically once the process is complete. If your configuration uses Microsoft School Data Sync to provision Microsoft Class Teams, we'll next make some updates specific for Microsoft Class Team creation. Once this is complete, we'll ask you to reconsent our API access for your Microsoft 365 tenant. This is to apply new permissions required for our Microsoft Class Teams provisioning. Once you've reconsented, click Confirm to continue. Next, we'll perform some checks to confirm that the new access permissions have been applied correctly. The page will update automatically once these checks have completed. Once we've finished preparing your install, we'll then ask you to confirm the dates for the current and next academic year. If these dates are correct, click Confirm to continue. If these dates don't look right, please check with your school's data manager and rerun these checks before confirming. Next, we'll ask you to confirm the date that we should use to retrieve data for next academic year. This should be set to the first day of teaching for all pupils in the new academic year. Your school year may start with inset or staged returns, but this date should be the date that all pupils are back in school. It's important we get this right to make sure we pull the correct data for next year. If you're unsure, please check with your school's data manager. You can return to this step later if you need to make changes. Once you're happy with this date, click Confirm to continue. If you're a multi-academy trust or school group running a multi-site installation, you'll then be greeted with the Rollover dashboard. This will show you all the schools in your installation and their progress through the tool. From here, you can apply actions to all schools in bulk or individually view a school's rollover by clicking on the row for that school. Please note, if users have only been granted the Rollover Manager permission for specific schools, their table view will be limited only to the schools they have permission for. In this step, we'll ask you to select the areas of your configuration you wish to roll over early. Once we've loaded the areas specific to your configuration, click the View button to make your selection. We recommend that all customers select pupils and staff if applicable to create your new staff and student accounts and update your groups ready for next academic year. Please note, this will not affect the processing of pupil or staff leavers. These will be processed as normal in line with your configuration. If you're a customer using timetable synchronization, you can optionally choose to sync next year's timetable events to user calendars before the start of term. You can choose this for students and/or staff later on. For customers using Google Classroom or Microsoft Class Teams, we also recommend selecting these for early rollover to ensure these resources are provisioned in time for the start of term, avoiding any need for last-minute intervention. Please note, if you're selecting Google Classroom or Microsoft Class Teams, you should also include pupil and staff in your selection to avoid any issues when creating your new teams or Google Classrooms. You can return to this step later on if you need to make changes. In this step, we'll be asking you to check and confirm the data for next academic year and configure your processes. We'll start by loading data from your MIS, so this may take some time. The page will update once this is complete. Once the pupil data has been loaded, we'll ask you to check the data to ensure the changes between this academic year and next academic year are expected. This is important to ensure that next year's users are created correctly. You should ensure the number of new records is correct to the number of new pupils due to start in the next academic year, and that the number of removed records is correct to the number of students leaving the school at the end of this academic year. The number of modified records should show the number of existing students who are moving up a year in school. You can view a detailed breakdown of the changes by clicking the View Detailed Changes button and can export the data to CSV files if required. If the data isn't as expected and you need to make changes in your MIS, you can rerun this step to load fresh data from your MIS. You can also return to step 1 and adjust the future date before confirming if required. Once you're happy the data is correct, click Confirm and continue to the next step. If selected, the process for staff is the same. Please carefully check and confirm the data is as expected before continuing to the next step. If you're a customer using Microsoft Class Teams, you'll be asked to check all the data areas that we're using as part of your Microsoft Class Teams process. Typically, this will be your subject classes and/or your tutor registration groups. When checking this data, we would typically expect to see the class memberships changing as students and teachers move to their new classes for next year. If your timetable structure has changed, you may also see new classes being added and old classes being removed. Checking this data is important to make sure we create the right class groups for next year. If you're unsure if the data is correct, please consult with your school's data manager. You can come back to this page and rerun the step to load new data from your MIS if you need to wait for changes to be made to the timetable for next year. You can also return to step 1 and adjust the future date if required. You can now set a sync stop date for next year's Microsoft Class Teams. This will prevent Salamander from syncing your class teams after this date has passed. This should be set to a week before the last day of timetabled teaching in next academic year. If you're planning to make any significant changes to the timetable before the end of next year, for example, if you start running a new timetable after exams or remove lessons from the timetable for study leave, you should set this date to before these changes are due to be made. This is to prevent students and staff from losing access to their teams. You can now optionally choose to delay the student memberships for next year's teams. This will prevent Salamander from adding students as members to the newly created Microsoft Teams until the selected date. Once complete, you can move on to the next step. If you're a customer using Google Classroom, you'll be asked to check all the data areas we're using as part of your Google Classroom processes. Typically, this will be your subject classes and/or your tutor registration groups. When checking this data, we would typically expect next year's class memberships to change as students and teachers move to their new classes for next year. If your timetable structure has changed, you may also see new classes being added and old classes being removed. Checking this data is important to make sure we create the right class groups for next year. If you're unsure if the data is correct, please consult with your school's data manager. You can come back to this page and rerun the step to load new data from your MIS if you need to wait for changes to be made to the timetable before confirming. You can also return to step 1 and adjust the future date if required. You can now optionally choose to set a sync stop date for next year's Google Classrooms. This will prevent Salamander from syncing your Google Classrooms after this date has passed. If you're planning to make any significant changes to the timetable before the end of next year, for example, if you start running a new timetable after exams or remove lessons from the timetable for study leave, you should set this date to before these changes are due to be made. This is to prevent students and staff from losing access to their Google Classrooms. You can now optionally choose to delay student memberships for next year's Google Classrooms. This will prevent Salamander from adding students as members to newly created Google Classrooms until the specified date. Please note, if you've previously requested students to not be added to Google Classrooms until the start of term, your existing configuration may take precedence over the date selected here. Once this is complete, you can move on to the next step. If your installation is configured to sync pupil timetables to Google or Outlook calendars, you'll be asked to confirm if you'd like to sync events to student calendars before the start of term. Select Yes to sync events early, or No to wait until the start of term. If your installation is configured to sync staff timetables to Google or Outlook calendars, you'll be asked to confirm if you would like to sync events to staff calendars before the start of term. Select Yes to sync events early, or No to wait until the start of term. Once you've configured all the selected areas, you can move to the final step. In this step, we'll ask you to check and confirm your choices before we finalize the changes to your configuration. Once you've confirmed your choices, you won't be able to return to the Rollover tool, so please check carefully before you confirm. Once you're happy, click Confirm to continue. We'll now update your configuration ready for next year. This may take some time. The page will update automatically once this is complete. Your Integration Suite configuration is now ready for next academic year. we won't start processing your new users, groups, teams, or Google Classrooms until the next scheduled run of your processes. You can manually start a run of your processes from the Integration Jobs page in the Salamander Cloud Portal. It's expected to take up to 24 hours to provision all your new resources, so please allow time for your sync processes to fully complete before contacting support regarding missing users, groups, or memberships. If you require any support while using the Rollover tool or have any subsequent issues, please visit our website.